Well, welcome. So great to have you guys here. I'm so excited to talk to you tonight about digestion. And it's my favorite subject because it's probably one of the most common conditions that I help people with in my practice. When we're doing nutritional therapy, people who come in, everybody has a digestive issue. And I've been doing this for 31 years and I've practiced all around the country. And what I've found is no matter where you go, people are pretty much overfed and undernourished. Wouldn't you agree?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. So we're not breaking down our food, and the quality of the food we're eating is pretty dismal in terms of nutritional value. So luckily we live in Northern California. We have access to really great food here, which is a blessing. But digestion has a long list of major health consequences when the systems are not working right. And I have a list here. I'm just going to read them. So the devastating effects of poor digestion are autoimmune diseases, arthritis, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, fatigue, migraine headaches, depression, IBS, Crohn's disease, diverticulitis, leaky gut syndrome, and worst case scenario, colon cancer. So I want to go through the systems and talk about the major components of the digestive system. But before we do that, I want to talk about the nervous system and how it relates, because I am a chiropractor and I do work on the nervous system, and there's a direct connection between the nervous system and digestion. So your gut is known as your second brain. There's a book by Campbell McBride called Gut and Psychology Syndrome. You should read it. And it talks about the connection between the gut and the brain. And there is a very strong biochemical connection between the two. And there's new research out right now that's come out that talks about patients who suffer with depression. They oftentimes have more often than not have a serious digestive issue that's really contributing to that. So it's not always a serotonin imbalance, but it's a neurotransmitter issue, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So the gut really is controlled by the autonomic nervous system. That's the part of the nervous system that controls all the organs, glands, and blood vessels. And there are two branches of the autonomic nervous system. There is the sympathetic and the parasympathetic branch. Now the sympathetic branch is the fight or flight reactive side. That's when you're under a lot of stress, or imagine you're driving down the freeway and those red lights go on behind you flashing. Your body reacts to that, right? You feel your heart rate go up, your pupils dilate, your hair stands on end. That's a sympathetic reaction at its best. It's designed to help keep us alive in a dangerous situation, to help us to react to save our lives. Now, the opposite of that, or the opposing branch, is the parasympathetic branch. That's the side of the nervous system that allows us to down-regulate to where we can rest and digest and heal. Remember I said digest. So if a lot of people come in and they're what we call sympathetic dominant. They're stuck in the sympathetic side of the nervous system. They can't down-regulate. And that can happen from a number of different what we call stressors, things that happen with the body that prevent the body from down-regulating. It can be a physical trauma, it can be emotional trauma, it can be scars. A scar on the body can affect the sympathetic nervous system. It can be an immune challenge, and that can be a parasite, a virus, bacteria, or fungus, candida. So it's really important when a patient comes in, the first thing we check is the autonomic regulation. Because if we don't correct that first, no matter what I do for the patient, no matter what supplements we give them, they're going to either not get a result or get the opposite result that we're hoping for. So handling the autonomic dysregulation is a really key component of helping patients to get better. And there's very few people out there that I know that really know how to monitor that and to check that. So it's part of the muscle testing that we do, and it's a very critical component to the success of the outcome of the patient. So I'm going to talk about the connection also between the brain and the body. The nerves that travel from the brain down the spinal cord, go out, they branch out, and they control very specific parts of the body depending on where those nerves come out in the spine. So I use the example of the stomach. We're talking about digestion. So the nerves to the stomach come from the mid-thoracic, the mid-back in between the shoulder blades, T6, T7. And so a lot of times patients will come in complaining of mid-back pain. It happened yesterday or 2 days ago. A woman came in, she had serious acute sudden onset of mid-back pain. I mean, it was bad, and it was swollen back there. And so the nerves that in that area control the digestion, control stomach, gallbladder, liver, pancreas, all from that mid-thoracic area. So we can adjust and adjust and adjust that patient if they have pain there, but if their problem is coming from an organic area, a digestive problem, then it's just going to keep recurring because there's nerves that travel from the brain out to the body that control the organs, glands, and tissues. There's also nerves that go the opposite direction that give feedback to the brain from the organs that, for instance, if the stomach is out of balance, in her case it was a gallbladder, let's say your gallbladder is inflamed, that's going to send abnormal messages back to the spine and cause the spine to misalign and can actually cause inflammation at that spine level. That was the case with this woman. She was in the midst of an acute gallbladder episode, and she had no clue that it was her gallbladder. But she had all the classic signs of a gallbladder problem, which are, I'll just tell you what they are right now. She had serious right shoulder pain right back here. She had a migraine headache. She had some nausea. She had right hand web pain right here. And she had significant tenderness and spasms when I palpated here, when I pushed in there. She didn't know she was sore here until I got in and poked around. She only had pain in the back of her neck or the back of her thoracic area. So that was her main complaint. She had no idea she had a digestive problem going on. Now, had she gone to the hospital or to the doctor, they would have probably, run some tests, maybe done an ultrasound on her and found that she might have had some stones, and of course, she would have gone straight to ER and had her gallbladder removed. But we were able to get her right away on the right nutritional products to help get the nausea down, start thinning the bile, start getting the inflammation down in the gallbladder, and already within 2 days she's doing significantly better. Her headache's gone, but she's going to be on this stuff for a while, and we can actually dissolve stones with the specific nutritional products that we have her on. So that's a classic example of somebody coming in with the typical structural pain, and the key was to know what those pain patterns really mean, and to know how to follow them and get to the actual right cause versus just chasing after the symptoms. So that's what kind of sets me apart from the typical chiropractor, where they just adjust the area that's painful, hopefully get them out of pain, and then send them on their way. So for us, it's not just treating pain, it's really addressing the underlying root cause. All right? By the way, if you guys have any questions along the way, this is really about you and helping to get you as much information as we can, so feel free to chime in. Okay, so let's talk about the stomach a little bit. First of all, do you know where digestion begins?
In your mouth.
Close. It begins in your brain.
Oh.
Think about it. When you're really hungry and you look at something on a plate, what's the response? What's the visceral response?
Mouth starts watering.
You start salivating, exactly. Yeah. That's a brain response. The brain tells the parotid glands to start salivating. So the pituitary gland in the brain controls the secretion of gastric juices in the stomach. And that's why as we age, our pituitary slows down. So hence, so does the gastric secretion juices slow down. And that's why as we age, digestion can get a little more difficult. So, or if a patient has had a head trauma, I see a lot of post-concussive syndrome patients who've had pituitary issues because of a trauma. And that can affect the pituitary, which can actually lead to digestive issues. So, emotional trauma, physical trauma, and age will slow the pituitary down, which will have a direct impact on the secretion of gastric juices into the stomach. So, Digestion starts in the brain, and then the next area is the mouth. So how much, tell me about your chewing. How much should we be chewing our food?
A lot.
There's a number.
40.
100.
And I've tried this 26 times, but really that's not even enough. If there's any still particles in your mouth, you're supposed to chew them until they're pretty much gone. So 26 times, that goes pretty quickly. But most of us are in a hurry. We're eating on the run. We're not chewing our food. We're swallowing big portions of food, which really stresses out the digestive system, makes it really hard to break down your food. So the salivary juices have enzymes in there that help to start the digestive process. So chewing the food is really important. That's why when you're eating, it's important that you sit and have a meal where you can dial down regulate, enjoy your meal, have conversation, take your time eating, and not be on the run. You don't want to eat food at the kitchen sink or you know, on the run.
Walking down the street.
Walking down the street,
Driving your car.
in your car, that happens a lot. Everybody's eating food in their car. So yeah, it's really important that you sit down, let your body down regulate, just sit and enjoy your meal. Okay, so let's talk about the chemistry in the stomach. The stomach is supposed to be very acidic. The pH is supposed to be very low. That acid, the hydrochloric acid in the stomach, is designed to break down your proteins and your minerals. So a lot of us don't have proper acid in our stomach because of various reasons. Number one, age, we talked about that. Diets high in carbohydrates, too much sugar. Not me.
Nope.
Too much sugar. Stress will cause your body to slow down its production of hydrochloric acid. And those are probably the most common causes. But so what happens is the pH comes up in the stomach. We continue to eat our food, but if there's not proper acid in the stomach, the food sits and rots in the stomach, proteins and minerals. And the rotting food produces a different kind of acid. There's lactic and pyruvic acids that are produced from rotting food, proteins and carbohydrates, that will then reflux into the esophagus, causing heartburn. In fact, those acids can be so toxic to the stomach that those are what we'll cause the peptic ulcers, burn a hole in your stomach. And you don't even know, you oftentimes don't know you have an ulcer until you start coughing up blood. Because the only thing that causes gastric pain is stretching. You can burn a hole in the stomach and not know it, but you stretch it and you're going to feel it. That's why gas pains are significant pains. Anywhere in the bowels, same thing. So when you get heartburn, what do most people do when they have heartburn?
They take Tums.
Right, they run to the, I was going to get a bottle of Tums and have it here, because they make them look like candy, sweet tarts.
Different colors.
Different colors, right. A great marketing ploy, I guess, but Tums, they neutralize the bad acid, but they also neutralize what good acid is left there. So what happens is you continue to eat your food, you don't have proper acid in there, so you continue to not digest your food, but you feel better. Takes your heartburn away pretty quickly, but it doesn't correct the problem, it actually makes it worse over time. You end up getting undigested food and more inflammatory products going into the small intestine. That causes gut inflammation, affects the permeability of the intestinal walls, which leads to leaky gut syndrome. And the walls in the gut have very thin cell layers. Those layers can separate and allow food particles to actually leach through the gut into the bloodstream, and then your body views those particles as foreign objects and starts attacking those food products. So what happens is that's how you develop food allergies. Suddenly your body recognizes that as an allergen or a bad thing, so you eat that wheat or whatever it is, and your body goes after it, and you start having histamine reactions and allergic reactions to foods that you shouldn't really be sensitive to. So that all starts because you don't have enough acid in your stomach. So the antacids, or the proton pump inhibitors, are called PPIs, those things that are doing, they do great to relieve the symptom, but taken long term, they actually cause a lot of damage. So what we do is we do the opposite. We give the body hydrochloric acid, or we have two different products. Another product that has bitters in it that helps your body to start producing the right amount of acid. It brings the pH down where it's supposed to be in the stomach. So you start digesting your food, the heartburn goes away, and your energy goes up because you're getting the nutrients from the food that you're eating. So remember that every single food particle that you eat gets converted into tissue cells. Your body's constantly laying down, old cells are dying off and new cells are being formed constantly in every part of your body. Some areas turn over quicker than others. The digestive tract turns over fairly quickly. So the more better quality food that you're eating, the better replacement parts you have to rebuild your tissues. And that's why it's really important to eat well, especially as we age, because we want our bodies to be strong, we want our bones to be strong, you want to have lots of protein to keep your skeletal structure strong. And so, and you want to be able to make sure that you're digesting your food. Another problem that happens with the antacids is that you cannot absorb calcium in an alkaline environment. In other words, when the stomach pH comes up, it becomes more alkaline. You take Tums with calcium, and they market it that way. The calcium doesn't get absorbed because there's not enough hydrochloric acid to pull that into the tissue. So it's a marketing ploy, but it's a biochemical impossibility. So the way to get more calcium absorbed into your tissues and help to keep your bones mineralized is by keeping the pH low in your stomach. And so a lot of people are mineral deficient. We do tests here all the time for the cramp test, and we find lots of people are mineral deficient. And it a lot of times has its root cause in this digestive issue. Not to mention the fact that our foods are seriously minerally depleted. So that's a big issue. It's amazing how there's such a trickle-down effect in the whole body when the digestive system's out of balance. So, any questions on that?
Dr. Marsh,
Yes.
your stomach's supposed to have low acid. How about your mouth?
Low pH.
Low pH, is it the same thing?
Low pH means high acid.
Okay, okay. I got you.
But the mouth's reversed.
The lower the pH number is, the more acidic it is.
Okay.
The mouth is supposed to be a little more neutral, a little higher pH.
What is neutral? I mean,
Like
what is
7.7,
okay.
7.4. So, if it's too acidic, as you know, that can create dental issues. And we do test pH, oral pH as well. So, so let's move on to the gallbladder. We talked a little bit about that, but a lot of people have gallbladder issues. Have anybody heard of the 4 Fs? The 4 Fs that have to do with the category for people who get typically gallbladder issues. Female, 40, fat,
And furry.
and flatulence. Oh, there's 5 now, there's furry. Sorry. Some of them might be furry.
Yes.
But the 4 Fs, so I need to repeat them. Female, 40, fat, flatulence, they have gas. So they're not breaking down their fats. Why is that a big deal? Because if you have a gallbladder issue and you go to the doctor, they want to remove your gallbladder like it's just a spare part. Like you don't really need your gallbladder, right? It's just...
Yeah.
But it's really important to break down your fats, and your fats are so essential for so many different key components in your body, primarily immune function and hormone synthesis, cardiovascular health. Good fats are really, really healthy for your heart. And energy. Your fat is the main source of energy in the body. So if you're not digesting your fats, you're going to have deficiencies in those areas. Plus, you will have, undigested fat becomes rancid, and it causes also a lot of inflammation in the lower bowels. So anything, when you're talking about lower bowel issues, like we had mentioned colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, diverticulitis, colon cancer, those lower bowel issues that occur down here are always secondary to an upper GI problem that happens first. So these things can't develop down here if everything else is working fine. These are always secondary. A lot of times people don't have this, they don't know there's a problem up here and then suddenly they have IBS. And I've seen very serious cases of IBS where a patient, you know, couldn't even go out of the house because they couldn't be away from a bathroom for very long at all. In fact, there was supposed to be a gentleman here tonight with that same issue, but I don't think he could get out. Kind of sad. And both of these people are young, in their mid-20s. So, digestive gallbladder, I've seen gallbladder patients in women in their mid-20s, early 20s, where they had to have the gallbladder removed. What's that say about our eating habits and the quality of food we eat in this country now? So, again, the gallbladder, which is just under the liver, it's a bladder. It stores bile. Bile is made in the liver, stored in the gallbladder. So when you eat a fatty meal, the body senses that when it hits the stomach and causes the gallbladder to inject bile into the small intestine to emulsify and break down fats. If you're not getting enough bile, if the bile quality is poor, it gets real thick and sluggish, or can coagulate and form stones. You're not getting enough bile, you're not going to break down fats, you're going to get things like bloating, gas, constipation and diarrhea that alternates. You can get pain behind the right eye, right shoulder pain, the things we mentioned, right hand web pain, that's a sign of a more chronic gallbladder issue. If you have pain in the right hand web, like right in there, oh, yours feels pretty good.
Would you like to test all
Can I
of
test
those?
here? Okay,
Sure.
right hand web pain, yeah, right there.
Mhm.
No, you're good, yeah. So,
I don't have fingers.
so
I take Colical.
I mentioned the migraine headaches, and then lower bowel inflammation. So, and also weight gain. That's a big problem. Women who can't lose that last 20 pounds oftentimes have a digestive issue that needs to be dealt with. So, dealing with the gallbladder, getting that thing functioning right is really important. And so if a person has a gallbladder attack, they go to the hospital, they get their gallbladder removed. That's just a symptom of a problem. It doesn't correct the problem if they have the gallbladder taken out. The problem actually is from the liver, because the liver is where the bile is manufactured. But then the gallbladder is gone, there's no regulatory system to break down fat, so the bile, which is an acid, is continually trickling into the small intestine, can actually lead to colon cancer. And you're not breaking down your fats because you don't get enough bile, and I've seen patients gain 30, 40, 50 pounds after their gallbladder was removed. And the doctors don't tell the patients that this might happen, or that they should be taking a bile salt if their gallbladder is gone, but that is the case. If your gallbladder is removed, you need to be taking a bile salt a specific way for the rest of your life to continue to digest fats and prevent weight gain, prevent colon cancer. So that's a big problem. I've seen patients lose 40, 50 pounds in a very short period of time just by that one thing, just by putting them on a bile salt if they've had their gallbladder removed without doing anything else.
Yeah.
So it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, especially since you change it 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
So-
you have to alternate you
yeah,
have to
so
kind of
that-
cycle the dose
So
up
it
and down a
doesn't
little
get
bit.
used to that same amount.
You've done great.
Yeah.
The downside of the work we do with people like you is you have to go out and buy a whole new wardrobe.
I did.
I know. I know, huh? Sorry about that.
It's worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it for sure. So, how are we doing on time? Okay, now the pancreas is here, and the pancreas is responsible for breaking down carbohydrates. It's also responsible for producing insulin, which is a hormone that breaks down your sugars. So, obviously too much sugar we know is a really bad thing. Carbohydrate consumption is through the roof in this country. And you look at what parents are feeding their little kids even. I see women, young mothers, with their kids in a stroller, and the kids have baggies full of Cheerios.
Fruit Loops.
Or Fruit Loops. It's just empty food that's total sugar, it's total carbohydrate. And you wonder why these kids are acting out, they've got ADD, they can't sit still, they misbehave, and the parents lose control. So young mothers do not know how to feed their kids, they're just not taught. And they have these simple sugars that they're feeding their kids just to kind of keep their kids quiet for a time, but they don't realize they're creating monsters. Kids start having immune problems, behavioral problems, sleep problems, focus problems. Their brains are they're not getting all the what we call genuine replacement parts for their bodies that are growing like crazy. They need good protein, they need good fat, because their hormones are changing, they're growing, they need the protein for bones and tissue growth and repair. So, carbohydrate consumption is really, really through the roof. So I tell patients, look, have 2 servings of fruit a day. Avoid pasta, bread, white potatoes, and rice. Those are the things that people are eating in excess in this country usually. And then, alcohol in moderation, but lots of water. And also, with a meal, you should be combining carbohydrates, protein, and fat in every meal and snack. And we have, a lot of times, patients will have small intestine issues where they're just really bloated, they're not digesting their food properly, and we have to put them on pancreatic enzymes to kind of give the pancreas a break. I want to talk about the heart connection, too, with the pancreas. And particularly atherosclerosis, or plaquing in the arteries. We've been told for decades that heart disease, particularly atherosclerosis, comes from eating saturated fat, like meat, butter, that kind of stuff. But what we know now, that's just not true. What we know is that eating too much carbohydrate causes the pancreas to overproduce insulin. So that extra insulin that's floating around in the bloodstream actually damages the blood vessel walls. It's an inflammatory agent. And the body's response to repairing the damaged blood vessel wall is by laying down cholesterol. Cholesterol is a healing agent. So cholesterol is not a bad thing. In excess it can be, but you can have more cholesterol than your doctor will tell you, and you'll be okay. But so the atherosclerotic plaquing comes from too much sugar, too much insulin, not saturated fat. So that's a really key component, key thing to know. That's why I tell people eat lots of good quality fat, eat lots of protein, and carbohydrates in moderation. When you go on the 21-day purification, which we do for patients a lot of times who have digestive issues, or they want to lose weight, or we need to detoxify them, they get a list of vegetables and fruit that are okay to take, and we always tell them eat 2 times the amount of vegetables that you do of the fruit. And we usually give patients a list of the lower glycemic fruits. Bananas are great. We use them in the shakes occasionally, but they're very high in sugar. Dried fruit is loaded with sugar. So the dark purplish fruits are usually better. Apples, pears, the grapes, blueberries, those are better choices. And again, in moderation, 5 servings of fruit a day, that's a lot of sugar. And I want to go back to the fat for a moment. The good quality fat, and we have a number of different oil products here that we recommend depending on how the patient tests. The good fat actually helps to get rid of the bad fat out of the gallbladder. So a lot of people are eating hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated fats and oils, which is what causes the liver to get really congested and produce poor quality bile. So those things are found in so many different foods. Anything made like chips, crackers, tortillas, anything in a bag or a box is going to have hydrogenated oil. Any salad, bottled salad dressing, loaded with hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated fats. We know a lot of the trans fats have pretty much been eliminated. Hopefully nobody here is eating margarine. If you are, I'm firing you right now as a patient. But that stuff, I mean, my in-laws used to eat that country crock. Country crock. Well, I don't remember the name of it, I mean, it's plastic, you know, it's not food.
So what is it, one chemical away from plastic?
Yeah,
Probably, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
It's got a shelf life, I think, of 100 years.
or I
or
can't believe it's not butter.
Yeah. Oh my.
How about just butter? Our mothers are right. Everything's better with butter.
Butter, yeah, organic butter is great. I
Yeah.
mean, I tell people just load it up the butter.
There's a butter from cows that are grass fed that is not really expensive.
Yeah.
It's about $4.
I'll tell people, if you have to have a piece of bread, use that as a butter vehicle. Load it butter, just slather butter on it and use that to get the butter in.
Okay.
But don't eat a lot of bread.
Nope.
So yeah, the oils, the good quality fat can help get rid of the bad fat. Now the oils, there's coconut oil, which is real popular these days, and you can heat that up, no problem. There's olive oil, which you don't want to heat up, but it's great oil. You use it on your salads and so on. Avocado oil can tolerate a higher heat. Organic butter, you can get great organic butter locally here. Don't shy on the butter and the fat. I tell patients if they really want to snack with fruit, then slice a couple of apple slices and dip it in almond butter. It's really good with maybe a little bit of honey. So there's a lot of better than choices out there in terms of fat and snacks and things like that. So let's go move down into the lower bowel here. We're going to talk about colitis and bowel inflammatory disease. It's very, very common these days. I've seen serious cases, thank you, serious cases of it. I've seen patients who had it so bad that the doctors wanted to start taking out sections of their colon, and we've been able to save them. And the worst cases were the ones where there was a trauma associated with their bowel disorder. In other words, they had a pretty significant spine trauma affecting the nervous system to that part of the bowel section and caused the if it's not getting nerve supply, what's the layer of your intestines made out of? Muscle. That's what creates peristalsis and movement of material through it. It's muscle layers. So if the muscles are not getting nerve supply, what do? They atrophy, they weaken, and they shrivel up and they can die. So if you're not getting proper nerve supply to these tissues, they can start malfunctioning and they create inflammation and they don't function. So restoring nerve supply is really important, but also